Ready to go. Thank you, Billy. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today. If everybody can see this right here, I'll actually take a picture of it and send it to Kellen so he can put it wherever he wants to put it. But like Billy said, we're making a draw knife today, and we're using repurposed material. We're going to be using a coil spring that is 1/2 inch diameter coil. And these are just the steps that I take when I do a draw knife. Now, full disclosure, the draw knife you see down here was actually the first draw knife that I ever forged. I've been wanting to forge a draw knife for a while, but I never really had a reason to other than for my own personal use. But I could always get away with not having one, you know. And then when I was asked to do, if I would do a demonstration, the first thing that automatically came to my mind was, let's do a draw knife, you know. And well, it was like, hey, do you have tongs? No, we already have that. Hammers? Nope, we already had that. Okay, draw knife then. But it's pretty simple. We're going to do it in a couple different stages here, and we're going to start out with this coil spring. So I'm going to throw that in forge right now, and we're going to look at the forge here later on. But I run a 2-burner forge, gas forge that I built myself. Has a 16-inch oven on it, as well as an 8-inch diameter oven. And we'll just get that coil spring heated up. So let me adjust my camera here real quick. We'll go down to my anvil and we'll take a look at some of the tools that we're going to be using today for this. It's pretty simplistic. I use wolf jaws for a lot of my round stock stuff. Really easy to use. So this is what these are, little wolf jaws here. And then I have various hammer sizes that I go through, and we'll use a 1-pound half ball, a 2-pound ball peen, and a 2-pound straight peen. And then the workhorse of today is going to be this 3-pound rounding hammer. And we'll be using a bending tool and a hardy bender later on in our demonstration. So the one thing you need to worry about mainly when you're starting a build like this is just don't overthink it too much. Is go with what your skills are and just throw yourself into it. If you overthink it, you're going to make mistakes, and you know, nobody wants to make mistakes. But when I go about doing something, I have an idea of what I want to forge, and then I just go forge it. You know, I know the hammer technique, and it never changes from the basic technique never changes when I'm hammering it. I just have to figure out how to direct the hammer for each individual project. And so as we get this heated up, we'll pan over here to the vise, and we'll show you how to undo a coil spring. The biggest thing is when you start with a coil spring, everybody has the biggest trouble trying to straighten these things out. And they always try and do it on the anvil or with the horn. If you have a vise, it doesn't matter if it's a post vise or a bench vise, just put it in there. You can build yourself a nice bending tool, or what I have used in the past is the end of a crescent wrench. Works really good. Hook that in there and you just start walking it around and bending it over. So you don't need a lot of cool tools to do this build. You just have to know basic forging techniques. You need to know how to isolate and upset, how to square and round off, how to draw it down and out. And the most important thing is how to swing your hammer with direct force, but not so much force you're wearing yourself out. Because this is, if I was doing this straight with no stages pre-built and everything, so we could get everything done, you're gonna have about, you know, if you're doing it by hand, about 6 hours of straight hammer work just to get it to where you want to have it before you even go and touch it on a grinder. And it's a lot of hammer work. And so you have to be able to move steel when it's hot really fast. And so you're not getting the fish cupping, the fish lips on the end. And that just comes down to basic hammer techniques when being able to draw a point on something effectively without having to set a bevel or upset a bevel onto it, which a lot of us do. I learned how to do points that way. Is you come in and you upset a bevel around it, so you knock that steel back into itself, kind of create a dome, and then you come down and it shoves that center steel out. Well, it's much quicker to just hit it super hard on two sides and it shoves that center steel out just like a press does. It takes that center steel and moves it out first in front of the hard edges. And if you can get that going on, you can get to the work at hand a lot quicker. So we're just about heated up here. I want to get it, the whole thing, to right around, we're probably looking at about 1800 degrees, so that I can really have time at the vise to get this as straight as possible, so that I'm not wasting a bunch of time in heats just trying to straighten it at the anvil. So I'll get it pretty straight. We'll have maybe one, maybe two heats of just trying to get it, that snake out of the piece, because it's super important that when you're looking at your initial starting stop, to have a straight line. If there's a bunch of kinks in it, it's really hard to visualize where you want to start out, or to measure, using, I don't use tape measures or rulers to do it. I basically just eyeball it, and I know the width of my anvil face and where it tapers down. So I use that kind of as an eyeball measurement to figure out, okay, I want, 5 inches of tang on either side. We're going to eventually want like an 8-inch blade on this. And so I just go through and I hammer that out until I get where I want to go, or a little bit bigger, knowing that we may do a little cleanup at the grinder. So, yep, it's been doing it right now. So, good question. If I do have Coil Spring that is coated with like a paint or kind of a rubberized substance, it's already been burned off in the forge through the heating process, and so yeah, it does get cleaned during that process. Okay, so we're gonna move you guys over here real quick. Come in here and we'll grab our piece here. And we're just going to start bending this back up and around itself. We'll walk it around. Trying to take as much of this bend out as I possibly can before I get back to the anvil. Using leverage to really straighten this out as much as I can. Now I have a little bit of heat left in this, but with 5160 Coil Spring, we don't really want to do a lot of cold hammering. Okay, so we'll get the anvil surface clean, we'll move the camera back over, and we'll get ready for our first real heat. Once again, I apologize for making anybody sick. Okay, are there any questions while we're waiting for this thing to heat back up?
Well, nothing in the chat right now, but yeah, if you mentioned that you're really into education, so one thing that I noticed is you're a member of the Blue Mountain Blacksmith Guild. So you want to maybe give a plug for those folks and anyone who's local that might be interested in checking you guys out?
The Blue Mountain Blacksmith Guild is first and foremost an educational organization. We're in it to educate the public and educate and bring any new people into the fold of blacksmithing and bladesmithing. I started the guild because I got tired of smithing by myself. I wanted to have other smiths to bounce ideas off of and to have fun with and to just hang out with, every 3 months. If we can get one every month, that's great. But the guild only doesn't really require anything. We just meet every 3 months, if possible. And, you know, we just want to have fun, and we're just kind of we're not really a nonprofit yet. That's the ultimate goal, is to get the nonprofit status type of thing. But right now we're just a group of guys, and that like blacksmithing and bladesmithing, and we like to teach it and share the subject. You can find us on Facebook. We're going to be setting up a Etsy, not Etsy, but a eBay page for any kind of charity auction, stuff like that. And, you know, we're just, you know, really young right now. We've only been doing this for 3 years, trying to get everybody interested, and then boom, everything happens that happened this year, and it's just trying to get everybody back in the swing of things how it used to be. It's really our main goal right now. Is if you don't feel safe meeting up, don't meet up. If you want to come and hang out and get back to normalcy, that's our kind of plan, is that we just go hang out and outdoors and light some forges and have friendly compositions and make cool stuff. So that's pretty much what we do.
Right on, thanks.
Okay. Here is the first heat. So this first heat is going to be a straightening heat to just help refine our snake we have going on right now. And it's, you know, like everybody's all done this before, you know, straightening something out. Just rotate it around, not really heavy blows. And I am going to just straighten this out here real quick. It's not advisable, but this would be the tang, one of the tangs. And it's not going to matter too much if we hammer down on that end piece a little colder than what I normally would do. So it is 16 inches long, maybe a little bit longer. Like I said, I take about a coil. If I stick this in there, we're probably about 18 inches right now, because I have a 16-inch oven on my forge. And I just take like a coil and a quarter. Like I said, don't really measure it. Just kind of eyeball it, cut it off, and that's what we make. So we'll have maybe a little bit bigger version of this draw knife when I finally finish all these that I started. But this is the ultimate goal, is to have something like that. You know, it's an 8-inch blade on here, put together, and it doesn't really need to be identical. These next ones coming out. I didn't see that comment.
Just, yeah, someone, yeah, the comment was just, yeah, noticing how you dunk your tools in the water between heats. Yep. So, yeah. But anyway, but Charlie was asking, what brand is your anvil?
This anvil right here is, believe it or not, an Amazon special. And I can't even pronounce the name of it. It's 132 pounds. And when I purchased it, it was still in stock, and I got it for 329 bucks shipped, free prime shipping. I mean, it has, you know, really good rebound to it. It's definitely a anvil for someone who is looking to get started, who may not have a lot of money. But the real buy and steal is this little brother. That's a 66-pound anvil. It has the same length as my 100-pound Hercules. It's not as tall, and this runs right now for 116 bucks. You know, sometimes taxes will vary based on state, but you can normally get them with prime shipping, so there's no shipping involved. 116 bucks. And I've Smith done a 1-inch cube challenge on this, and it just keeps on ticking. It is such a teaser. If I would have known about these years ago, I would have bought these instead of buying all the antique anvils that I have. They're such a great buy. Okay, so we're going to start. We got our snake out of there. We're going to start isolating our blade. Now, when we isolate our blade, we're only hammering on one side of the piece. And we're going to angle hammer it so we start drawing that out away from our spine. And we're only going to hammer on one side of the piece. Yeah, well, I can spell it for you. How would we do that? Or I can just hold, we could hold that up there.
So that I'm seeing ACCIAIO.
I-O.
Thank
Yep.
you.
The great anvils. Nobody should ever use a railroad track anvil ever again. Okay, so we're going to pull this out here, and we're going to come across here. The technique is you're going to be coming down with an angled hammer across your face, staying away from the spine as much as possible initially. You want to draw as much as you can away on one side. All right, so you're going to come across here, and you're going to come across one side of it. Stay away from that spine initially. We're just trying to upset a little bit of a shoulder here before we go on to the tangs. We're going to get this just forged out a little bit, then we'll start working our tangs. Now this is a 5 7/8 inch face. I want about 5 inches out here. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to start hammering across my face. Pushed it a little bit, knowing that I'm going to have to push a little, have a little bit less on this side. I got a little more than I wanted, so I'm going to even this out. There we go. Always put your piece back in the forge straight so you can get a good look at it. So we've created some small shoulders here, and we're going to continue to refine those shoulders of our blade with each heat.
So Joe Elliott was asking, are all coil springs 5160?
No, they are not. It's very, I have not tested or had any kind of metallurgical testing done on them, but the majority are. But what you have to worry about or not worry about is that you'll know that every coil spring is a hardenable steel. It may be a different alloy than 5160, but essentially it's all high carbon spring steel. And so if you're really into the metallurgical side, take a couple different springs, cut some samples and send them off and get them tested to see if they really are whatever everybody kind of says they are. The majority of them, from my understanding, is yes, they are 5160. But if you read some of the literature, it's not always the case, if that answers your question.
I think so. Thank you.
Now we're going to continue using this 3-pound hammer to draw this out, and then we'll switch to the ball peen and the big ball peen, the 2-pound ball peen, and the 2-pound straight peen. The 1-pounder is going to come into play when we start doing, I can swing it really fast and really hard, but do minimal work, just small facing work on it. And then I'll take it and smooth that out with the flat face, all the ball peen marks. But you want to get as much work done with the big hammer so that you don't have to do as much work with the smaller hammers. So get what you need done and then switch to your other hammers, and then just keep on going through your hammers until you get the piece you want. Okay, here we go. Back over here again. what you want to really pay attention to, you don't want to overwork your steel and yourself. So yeah, there's still a lot of heat left in this, but not a lot of forging heat left in it. And that, what I mean by that is that at a certain point, you begin putting more work into it than you're getting out of it. And so what you want to do is you just want to make sure it's straight while your heat dies off. Get as much done as you can when you can, so that we have these isolated pretty well now. We can start working on our tank. Don't overwork your steel, especially high carbon. Don't overwork yourself when you don't need to. That way you can forge a lot longer. And when we get this thing forged out a little more, I'll take and throw some anthracite coal in the back of it to help create a more reductive environment, so that we're not oxidizing as much steel as we normally would with the gas forge. Gas forges are an extreme oxidation forge. And to get rid of that, to get rid of some of that excess oxygen, you can throw some anthracite coal, which is smokeless, it's clean in the back of it, and it eats up any of that excess oxygen, which means less scale. I mean, there's also already some in there, but there's no scale. What you see on here on my anvil right now is water. There's no scale coming off this because we're in a very, very reductive environment, which is important when you start getting thinner on your blade. All right. So we're gonna come out, we're gonna set that shoulder, a hard shoulder on there, and start drawing out our tank. Our tangs. We'll go all the way out, we'll square two sides of it, and then we'll go right to the point and start flip-flopping back and forth and drawing our point down into a nice square point. Get my tongs set here. I'm hanging that shoulder over the edge. And you'll watch this point heat up as I go. Slowing down my hammer strikes as I get thin out there on the end. Back to straighten. You see, we set a nice shoulder there, and we'll come back to that and continue working out this tank. Now, I'm still only working on one side of this piece.
So yeah, I guess while we're waiting, then you were talking about your Blacksmith Guild, which sounds really interesting. So are you guys open to new members? And if so, how would folks around the Walla Walla area get in contact and find out about that?
You can contact me over Facebook, or you can, if we have various admins on Facebook page, Blue Mountain Blacksmith page, and you can just message us. And if you're interested in it, you just show up to a meeting, and we're kind of winding down for the year, but you show up and you can audit it. If you like what you see and you like the people, then you pay your dues at the beginning of the year, or you can pay them per event. It's like $100 for the year, or it's $50 per event, and there's 4 events that are offered through the guild. And so if you pay your $100 for the year, you're going to pay less than if you pay per event. So you might as well just pay for the year if this is what you like, and that's how you get in touch with us. It's just a fun organization to hang out with people and meet new people and make new friends and bounce ideas off each other, and that's pretty much it.
Well, excellent. Well, if we're still waiting for a heat, one of the things that apparently you had offered to do would be to auction off this Drawknife today, and have the proceeds kind of be split up between the NWBA and the Blue Mountain Blacksmith Guild. Am I correct?
Actually, Billy, all the proceeds will go to the NWBA.
Oh, Well, Zai, well, thank you. And so I guess Lynn has already started the bidding at $50 for this thing. So I guess we'll get the 55. I guess we'll get the auction going then, and people, you guys know what to do. So right on. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really important, I think, to partner with other organizations and as an individual and as an organization. And for this one, I felt to get in the door and to just have fun with it, that we just keep it as simple as possible. And if my guild would like to watch it, Kellen was saying, here, you can watch it since you're donating everything to us. And I thought that was a cool deal, and I can't wait to do more of these things, you know, and have fun with it. Okay, this heat, we're just going to square this up and start working it. So we're just going to start squaring it. We have our point set. We're just going to start working it down. I want something eventually that's going to be, you know, a 10-inch tang or something like that, but we'll get more into that when we go to the next stage. So we're just doing basic techniques here, just kind of squaring this off and not really doing heavy forge work. We just want to get this nice and sharp so we can see our lines and get our shoulders set. So we're going to come back to that shoulder again, really come down hard on that to isolate it, then go all the way across the top to where we start our point. Turn it. Almost turned the wrong way. We want to turn it towards the blade side up. If you go home and start getting a twist like I am, a little bit in there, champ for your edges back. You're going to knock that corner steel back into the center. And you can start working that back square again instead of diamond shape. And that happens a lot of times when you have tong slippage on your piece. It starts to roll a little bit. Okay, it may look like I'm hitting it hard, but I'm not. Basically doing a straightening planish flow, making sure everything dives in correctly so I can get a good feel off of this transition here when we start drawing that out. Because this is where stuff gets wonky, that transition from the tang into the blade. We're going to flip it around and do the other side. Okay. This side's going to take a little bit longer to heat up since it's been out of the fire longest. Those of you want another look at this guy. The handles on this are, I have a tree in my backyard that I harvest the wood off of and then dry it myself at the top of my shop. This wood was dried for about 3 years, and then I looked at the leaves to try and identify it. The leaves say oak, the color says Osage. It's really weird. But either way, it's a really nice wood. It takes the handles really well, and the fittings on this are just old repurposed plumbing pipe. They got cut out of something. And we'll go over handle materials later on when we get through the tempering process and everything here later on today. All right, what we're going to do here, we're right before we're going to switch to our next stage, which I have already set up. But we're going to square this up. Not going to draw the tip on it. You guys already saw that. We're going to square this up, isolate that shoulder on the other side, and then we're going to do one more heat when we work on the blade and start drawing that out so that we can then transition into the other piece that I have set up so that we can get this thing all the way through quench and temper in the time allotted. Because this could become a problem for some people making something like this, because when you quench it, you're basically quenching a piece that looks like a bridge Okay, here we go. Same thing. We're going to isolate that as my earbud falls out, as long as everybody can hear me. Okay, now we have two isolated shoulders there, one here and one right there. We're going to stick there and start turning the blade. Now this is the back side that's been against the anvil. We want to work this side of our blade. This guy's going to go away for right now. That's a 3-pound rounding hammer. We're going to jump into this 2-pound ball peen here. We're going to start by using the peen side. We'll see if we can do this whole work here in one heat. What I'm thinking is probably going to happen is it'll start to cool really quickly on that thin stuff, and we won't be able to get a good forging on the side closest to the tongs. So it'll probably be 2 heats on this. We'll try and do it in one. Really come down hard with that peen, draw that out, squirt that steel out of the way, and actually it'll be this way because we'll be coming over our spine like that. I put it in the wrong way. I can hammer, I can come down, I will come down with the right hand. We'll come down this way. It's much easier to get that drawed coming back and letting your wrist kick over so that you're hitting on this front side of the peen and pushing that steel away from that spine. Let your wrist really break over and come down and hit like that, instead of hitting like this where it's going to push steel in 360 degrees. Okay. All right, so now we got a little banana going on there. Remember, straighten it all out. Always put it back straight. Come down, lift up. Okay. Now we're going to come back with the flat side this next heat. How many people can hammer with both hands? You know, you just give a thumbs up. I won't be able to see it, but everybody else will. You can get away with only having hammering with one hand, but being able to hammer with both hands is a really cool skill because it allows you to get the same hammer swing on different sides of that blade. So if I turn this around the other way and worked it from the blunt side without the pointed tip, I could easily hammer and do that. But let's say I put it in there backwards. Instead of wasting heat, I just turned it around with my right hand and hammered it out. And the only reason I'm able to do that, I've been kind of ambidextrous my whole life, but I hurt myself, about 5 years ago, and I wasn't able to use my left hand for about a month. I couldn't even lift my arm. I had to physically lift my arm itself, but I could hold a pair of tongs. It could hang there, and I could get it to where I could hold a pair of tongs and then push that against my leg to trap it in there. And then I spent a whole month working with my right hand to be able to have a somewhat of a controlled swing with my offhand. I used to tell everybody I think differently when I use my right hand. It was just a joke. Some people took it serious, other people laughed at me, but the real reason is so you can get that same swing. Because if I wanted to work with how it is, I'd be reaching this way and be pushing steel into my spine. And if I could come down like that, but I'd be hitting, it'd be uncomfortable to drop my hammer like that to hit. It's just easier to come across here and really get my swing in and get my swing in, you know, and then I'm pushing the steel exactly where I want it to be.
So far, we only got one taker on the ambidextrous in the crowd, so.
That's good stuff. But it is something for you, all you Smiths out there to try. And, you know, because it is, especially those that demo, it's a cool party trick, you know, because you hammer, 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 and just doing hella blows with your main hand, and then you switch, and everybody's like, "Whoa, what just happened?" You know, because it's weird. Not a lot of people are ambidextrous, but it can be taught. Okay, so we're going to be coming down now. I'm going to come down with my left hand across the top because I'm just doing some flattening blows, cleaning up that ball peen work. I'm holding this against my thigh. You can see over here to help keep it straight, because if I don't, it's just going to want to bounce around. So I'm pushing it with my thigh, just like if I had the shoulder here and coming down, I could do that, or the step, I could push it against there. I'm going to hammer this all the way out on this edge here. You don't want to come up on you. You just got to keep fiddling with it. And you just keep going at this, working that blade, making sure everything is straight until you have something that looks like that. So we're going to stick this in there and continue working this. We're going to work this tang right here out. We continue drawing it out. It's the shorter of the two, the less refined of the two. Once again, we're going to, doesn't really matter at this point because you have it pretty hammered down which side's your backside. This is the smoothest side, so I'll probably have this as my backside and start working everything like this, making sure that everything comes off of this plane in an even fashion. But this comes back to the style of work that you do. Wrong side. Getting ahead of myself here. So if you do if you're into it for making this super clean, finished work, which I do on my knives, but even my knives, my favorite style is making it look like it was dropped out of the 1800s. And you just don't take a lot of the work out. But having an even hammer swing will allow you to have pitting in the blade, don't clean your steel as much. It pushes that scale into the surface, creates these little pits like it's been, you know, rusted and for a long time and then cleaned up. And the most important thing is just have a nice even swing when you're trying to do work like that, so you don't have these weird crescents in there and these weird divots that weren't put there specifically. And how you can change that is you can take and really, really church up a blade, is you can take and run a ball peen all over the dang thing, right? And then you take a dog's head and you dog's head that smooth. And what it does, it creates this super fine texture that's smooth to the touch, but visually has depth. And then you get that really old looking piece there. Now I didn't do that on this piece. Stippling, yeah. But that's what you can do. If you want that super smooth piece, but you want that depth, take and stipple it with a ball peen, and then take all that that stippling or dippling or whatever you want to call it out with a dog's head or a flatter, whatever you have to use. I like a dog's head because it's more controlled, for me at least. I don't need to have another person as a striker. I can do it all myself. Because anybody that's used a flatter on anything that isn't flat, like if you have any kind of angle in it, it's going to want to squirt out if you're not holding on to it. And you could use a hold tight, hold fast tool. All right. We're going back to our 3-pounder here. We're going to come and isolate this once again. Not a heavy hit, just a nice even hit. Holding our piece across the anvil, moving it underneath the hammer until you get to that shoulder. And we're going to come back this plane and really walk it underneath our hammer. Up next to the shoulder, nice controlled even blow so you don't damage that shoulder that you spent all this time trying to create. Okay, this is our backside here. You notice they weren't heavy blows, but they were forging blows. Got a nice square. Put the other side in. We'll do the same thing the other side.
So yeah, I got a question, Nathan. You're talking about everyone has their style, and a lot of us like to use measurements. So at that point, what would you say your blade is beveled to when you're, you kind of switched to a different piece here? So you're working on the tangs now. So what do you try and forge your blade down to at the edge in the spine at this point? What would you estimate?
Right now we're sitting at about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to finish it out at right around a 32nd. So that I don't want to take a lot of my work out of this thing, so I don't want to do a lot of grinding on it. But that 32nds of an inch is going to be enough of a flat spot to where you're not going to get that wavy edge in there when you go to quench it. Like a lot of us have done when we first started making blades. We get it too thin, we go to quench it, and the spine's straight, but the edge is just all over the place. Keeping somewhat of a flat spot, and I'm talking, it could be a 1/16 that I'm going down to. I don't measure it. I have calipers, but I don't use them very often unless I'm doing a piece that has to be precise and really within measurement. But between a 1/16 and a 32nd, especially with a almost chisel type edge geometry you're going for on this, is you want that super flat side, and then you want your blade to dive in so that you're getting a nice flat pull and it's doing its job, and then you just have to rock your blade back and forth for wherever you want it, how much you want to dig in. That answer your question?
Sure, yeah, and something that I've heard is a lot of blade makers go for dime thickness on the edge.
Yeah. I basically teach people the way I do it, and then just tell them, I says, this isn't the end-all, be-all way to do it. This is how I've been able to do it and developed. Is it the best way? Probably not. Is it the right way in everybody's opinion? Most definitely not. But it is a way that works. It is a way that gets me off the grinder as fast as possible. And we'll see the grinders here when we get them. I used to work with 1x30s and 3x21 floor sanders, and I just recently this year got two 2x72s, and I'm getting a third one to help teach classes. And anybody that has a 2x72 knows that, yes, they are super quick at what they do, but you still can stand at one for hours on end trying to get stuff done, And that's really what takes up a lot of our time as a smith, whether you're a bladesmith or blacksmith, is the cleanup work. So the more cleanup that you can do at the anvil with like a dog's head or with a flatter, that means the less time you're standing at the grinder and more time you're getting your piece done and out the door so you can start on another one. All right, we're going to clean up the other tang here. This one was already pretty clean, so it's just some light planishing blows. Don't want to do too much on this backside, but I do want to take some of that out. This is the top side of the blade we're on right now. And we're really going to start tapering this in here. This transition has to taper down to meet the blade, the spine thickness, and the same thing on the other side. It doesn't have to be super even. It really depends on what you're going for. If you want it to look like a machine did it, which is a lot of people like that look, then you do that look. It's really hard to sell. I mean, truthfully, it's hard to sell this. It really is because of the way it looks. But that's what I like doing, you know. And if it's going for a giveaway or if it's going for an auction, that's how normally I do stuff. If it's going to a client or if I want it to sell like quick, I'll do it completely clean, you know, looks like you can buy it at the store, but you know it's handmade type of thing. All right, we're going to do a few more heats on these tangs. Looks like we're, what is it, 36 minutes, Billy? Is that where we're at for time?
I don't have the exact time here, but I think we're doing very good on it. Okay. I think you got plenty of time, you know, do as I said, do what you need to do, because I think we got plenty of time on our end. Okay.
I set a timer when I started, and I'm sitting at like 35 minutes right now. We're left to go. I think I have plenty of time to do what I need to do. Okay, so go ahead.
I was just going to say, after this heat, Carl's asking if you could get a better look at that dog's head hammer.
Yes, you can. It's I'll explain it when we get to it. It didn't start out as a dog's head hammer, for sure. Right now, I'm just transitioning on my blade side. Now, I am hammering down on the spine of my blade at this point, because I want to really elongate, bring everything up, create a kind of a flat shoulder or flat tabletop, more or less, on the spine of this blade. So I'm really just kind of bouncing my hammer off of it, not really doing heavy blows, continually doing straightening blows, because this type of smithing, and anybody who has tried to hammer in a trail point blade or even a blade, it's just a cutting edge itself, knows when you hammer on that cutting edge, it starts banana on you. And sometimes that's what you want. But in this instant, we don't. You want it so you can kind of see this flat spot happening right around in here.
Yep, looks good.
Okay, so let's talk about this dog's head. Now this is this is one of my first hammers I ever built, and it was a straight peen. And as you can see, it's not well forged. It's basically a lump of steel with a hole in it that I drifted through there. I cut the peen off of it because it was just ungodly looking. Made me want to throw up every time I looked at it. And so I cut it off and didn't use this thing for years because it was just so flat, until I got better at hammering where I could control that, knowing where to hit to work it, and just bounce it off the surface. Because a dog's head is not made to be swung. You pick it up and you drop it. Pick it up and you drop it. It's made for planishing. Now, I have done Japanese style smithing where all I use is a dog's head. And it is long, hard, tiring work because you're doing basic forge planishing the whole time. It's a pain in the butt. But it does teach you something about hammer control. Using such a flat-headed hammer, I mean, once you do a project just using a flat-faced hammer, you'll never have another problem with hammer control. I guarantee it. I'll use that hammer this time. Those that haven't done a lot of dog's heading, this is about a 3-pounder. Someone tried to call me. I'm just bouncing it, overlapping my blows. Basic, you know when you hear Smiths go half face blow, you can do that without hanging your piece off. What they're saying is you put half the hammer on the anvil, hammer off. So I'm overlapping my blows with the hammer, which is basically the same technique. I'm keeping my piece completely on and allowing my hammer to planish this. And if you were here, you could feel this and it'd be perfectly smooth. There's no, I mean, it looks forged, it's perfectly smooth, just like if you took it to 1200 grit. It's absolutely amazing way to finish a piece because you can leave all the scale on it and not have to hit it with the grinder and be perfectly happy with that finish. So let me turn that around here real quick. We got a nice transition here. It's really nice and thick. We need to get the other side. And we're pretty close to getting ready to put our bends in this. Do some basic open scroll work. I mean, so when you get to bending, right? This is a bending hardy, bending fork, whatever you want to call it. Every bend is a basic scroll. A scroll can be defined as open or closed, right? And so if you put a bend in there and you're doing scroll work, you're just leaving it open. That basic bend, if it has a soft corner on it, is a open scroll. And then everybody's done the closed scroll. Some have done the penny scroll, which is an open scroll. But everybody who has ever made a hook and they put that little curly on the end of it and then a touch, that's a closed scroll. A closed scroll that comes back into an open scroll into a wall attachment. So as long as you think of every bend as a scroll, it's real easy to match. It's when you start trying to overthink it and think, well, I need this. This is a hard bend versus an easy bend. Blah 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 blah. No, it's a closed or open scroll, just depending on how far you take it. If I took these tangs all the way around and touched the point, it'd be a closed scroll. So we're going to be panning here pretty soon over to the other anvil where this hardy fork is. We're going to take, I'll just take the dog's head some more because it's fun to use. Now we didn't get to the 1-pounder today because I've pretty much done a lot of the work already. Make sure I got on the right side. Yeah. I'm going to tip my hammer. Dog's head, we're going to come at an angle and we're going to go right on that edge. Nice, even, planishing blows. All it is, I'm really setting my edge geometry. And we're about at a 1/16 of an inch right now. Just going back and forth on here. A little bit bigger hammer out here that I can actually swing and take some of this bend out of here. Okay, this is the blade side. You might be able to see, there we go, that sheen right there is that tabletop that we put in there. There's the edge, there's that edge geometry. Everything is pretty well tapered, thick, thin, 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 and to thick. We're pretty good to go on there. Might need to work a little more on this one, getting that flat. And that's where this comes into where you just have to fiddle with it. You know, you just have to go through with your hammer and make sure that you have that bottom side that rests on the wood as flat as possible. Now I'm going to go put this on the grinder, and probably not today, but you'll be able to grind that backside pretty smooth. We're going to do our first bend scroll. So this is a 100-pound Hercules. It's the first anvil that I ever owned. And for the first probably 9 years, I didn't own it. My dad owned it. And then he gave it to me for my birthday. So pretty cool. All right, now remember, this is high carbon steel, right? So you can't quench one side, or you can't quench where you don't want to bend. You have to bend and straighten, bend and straighten, bend and straighten. Now I'll probably see if we could use, so I'll have the tongs here, and I might come in here and use the wrench as well. Okay, so we're going to start right up against the shoulder, and we're just going to walk this around. And that's about all that I want, maybe a little more than I want, but I can go over on the anvil and take some of that out. While it's still hot, though, we're going to go on the anvil. Just kind of get everything back in the plane. And this is truly, if you haven't already, where your backside comes in. We're Smiths, so we can change our mind whenever we want. That's just the nature of the beast. Okay, so we're going to bend there. We're going to take this back out. We're going to put the other end in. Okay, any questions so far?
Nope, I think you're doing an excellent job explaining.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, while we're at it, I'll just remind folks that currently the bid is $90 for this draw knife. It looks like it's going to be a gorgeous, useful tool. And don't forget, the proceeds go to benefit the NWBA.
Who wants to see it in action real quick?
I'll say yes.
All right, let me reposition here real quick while this is heating up. Okay, here we go. If I can get a good angle here for it to be seen.
Definitely looks like it does what it's supposed to do, for sure.
It's definitely functional, and in my opinion, it's a beautiful piece. You know, depending on what your idea of beautiful is, you know, if it lines up with mine, you know, being able to see a piece that is functional as well as beautiful, but also fits a certain, you know, time frame within history, in my opinion, is where the true beauty comes in. Is if I can take it and make it look like that I just reached down and grabbed it out of history, and there you go. Okay.
Yeah, you've just converted Bryson to use a drawknife instead of a grinder to rough shape his handles.
Well, that's one of the biggest things that I want to make sure everybody knew is that, I mean, I used to hew my handles with an axe, and then my first axe I built, used to hew it, and then this right here, every smith should have one, and then you can hold it between your legs, but then you get a drawing tree or whatever you want to set up where it holds it nice and flat where you want it to be. This is super quick. You know, you don't waste belts. You're not wasting any money. You can get it to the size you want it, and then go in and work your handles if you want them nice and smooth. It's just a really cool tool, and you don't have to, you know, make it yourself. You can get these things that are very, very good tools for like $25, you know, somewhere. Excuse me. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to do the other band, just so we get the same, the same muscle memory in there. Whoops. And we're going to start turning it. This is where having the tongs to stabilize it and the bending tool to really do all the bending comes into play. And I can really take a look and pull my tongs back and really eyeball this piece to see if my angles line up, and they're really close. So I'm going to be happy with that. But I'm going to come in here and we're going to come down flat on that and really work this in. Now, I would spend another hour on this piece alone, just tweaking it, straightening it. But essentially, there is our draw knife without handles or anything on it. So what we're going to do, I'm not going to go through any heat cycling on this, but realistically, we put a lot of undue pressure and tension in this piece. So what you would normally do, and all the bladesmiths out there know this already, is you could do an annealing cycle, and you can do it right in your forge. What you do is you heat your forge up to, I heat my forge up to like 2,000 degrees, and then I shove my piece in there, shut my forge off, and brick it up and walk away. And I'll let it sit all night. And yes, it isn't precise, but it's a lot better than not having, like, if you don't have access to a Paragon or an even heat oven to do that in, where you could program that to come down at a temperature of 5 degrees every hour or whatever it is. You can just brick up your forge, throw your piece in there, walk away, come back again the next day. If you really are worried about the tension that you put into it. Normally what I do is, if I have other work to do, is I have a hook that I hang at the top of my shop that I'll hook a vice grip onto it, heat it up to non-magnetic critical temperature, and then hang it up in the top of the shop where all the heat goes from my forge. So it's hot up there or warm up there. Sometimes it's really hot up there, and it will cool down at a pretty slow rate. And so what you'll do is you just continue doing it that way. If it works, why change it? And so eventually I'll get a even heat or a Paragon oven. You know, it just makes stuff more controlled, especially for different alloys of steel. But for this stuff, repurposed steel, never had a problem doing it this way. You can either stick it in your forge, or forgot another one. I just brought this up. If you have underneath your coal forge, if you have a dirt floor like I do, and you kind of let your ash build up down there, and then you shovel it out when it gets too big. If you have an ash pile from a coal forge, heat it up to critical temperature, non-magnetic, bury it in your ash pile, and come back in 2 days. It'll be perfectly cool, and it's gonna cool down at almost a controlled rate based on thermodynamics of soil and ash. You can actually, I'm pretty sure that there are charts out there on the internet that you can look up that'll tell you approximately how slow that'll cool down by burying it in the ground or burying it in ash. So, all right. So it's cooled down a little bit on my anvil just sitting here. Normally you wouldn't want to put a piece on an anvil, especially since even with what we've been doing on here, the anvil hasn't even heated up yet. So we're going to stick this in there. We're going to heat it up, and we're going to go over and quench it in my quench tank and get it, and then do all this compressed style. So let's play like that. We've had this hanging up there, cooled it completely down to touch, but we've had it in the forge overnight, completely cooling down. And then we're coming out here. We're going to heat it back up to non-magnetic, which is about, for this steel, quenching temperature at this steel at 5160, if it is 5160, is 1525 to 1550. That is a red color. So we're going to heat it up. I'm going to turn my forge down. We're going to let this heat up nice and slowly. We're going to pull it out, and we're going to go dunk it in our quench tank. Now, this is where you might need to think about what you're doing with quenching. You can do an edge quench on this, where basically it's actually more of a spine quench. You have a trough here, and you just quench it, right? I'm going to stick the whole dang thing in there because I draw all my colors out. I'll start when you guys will see it. We'll draw the temper all the way up the tang, across the spine, and down, and then back up that tang. You know, start the tip because heat rises. It's going to be much easier to temper it that way. This is almost cool to the touch. You could pretty much touch that if you had a little bit of moisture on your hands, if you had to. And we'll use the vise to do our tempering. So let's go ahead and stick this in the forge, and I'll start answering questions if anybody has any while we wind this thing down.
While you're doing that, Dwight's got a question. What's he doing, or what are you using to quench with? What's your quenching liquid?
Vegetable oil. I won't cook with it, but I'll cook my steel in it. I've had friends that go, well, why are you so afraid of using conventional quenching oil that's specifically set up for that? I'm not, other than the fact that I can walk down to the grocery store when I need new oil and just buy some more, and I don't have to wait for it to get shipped. That's it. And I've never had a problem with it. Vegetable oil, they say that when it goes rancid, change it out. I basically do a lot of tests, and I have a lot of people coming through my shop. So I'll run snap tests and stuff, and on stuff that I know should harden up. And if it doesn't harden up, I change my oil out. You know, like if I'm going on to a big knife project or a set or doing hammers like I just got done, I will I'll make sure that my oil is relatively new. Pour half of it out and then put some more in there. And you guys will see my tank here in a little bit. I won't move the camera all the way over there, but we'll get a look at right over here. Get this thing loosened up here. So that right there with the board on top of it is my quench tank. It's like 32 inches tall. It's probably 10 inches wide, or this way, and then four inches wide. And that allows me to pretty much quench anything I want to quench. But if you guys like Parks 100, There's a couple other ones out there. I just know, like Bruce Bump here in Walla Walla, he uses Parks a lot on his stuff. Like if I was into high-end mosaics, I'd probably use a more scientific quenching method because I'm putting so much work and time into a mosaic Damascus build that, I mean, you don't want to screw around with, you know, oh, well, that looks okay, you know, type of deal. So.
About how many gallons you think you got in that pipe there?
Probably 3 gallons. It looks, I mean, I was really surprised at just how little it was when I first got it. I'm like, I went and bought like 6 gallons of stuff. And well, I had my wife do it, and she's like, are you sure we need this much? And I go, yeah, we're good. And I think it's probably close to 3 gallons in there. Maybe a little more. But I haven't truly cleaned the bottom out, so there's probably less in there than what you think because there's a lot of sediment probably in the bottom. But she wasn't too pleased when she had to come back with 6 gallons worth of vegetable oil, and I only used you know, a quarter of it or a third of it, you know. But yeah, you don't have to get the expensive stuff. But if you are in a production shop, and this is, you know, I am in a production shop. I do a lot of work out of this shop. But the fact of the matter is that when your shop starts producing bigger and better things is when you should start buying bigger and better things. Because it allows you to get done with those things much quicker. And the only reason I bought the 2x72s, for instance, is because I was doing so much more work that I had to get done with stuff much quicker. And that's what they allow me to do. They allow me to get done with my work faster. They don't allow me to do better work. It's me that allows me to do better work. They allow me to evolve faster and do faster work. Just like if you get the Even Heat or the Paragon ovens, it allows you to do stuff more precise, but also faster. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Me anyway.
And then I'm sure there's other blade guys in the house, and you know, they know what I'm talking about. A blacksmith, truly, I had an old blacksmith tell me, he says, the only tools you will ever need in your blacksmith shop to do anything you ever want to do is something to swing, something to heat it, and something to put it on. And then maybe one file. Because your hammer swing should be controlled enough to where you're doing all your finish work with the hammer and all your cleanup work with your hammer to the point to where you don't need any power equipment, period. And that is true, you can. The problem with that is that you're not a production shop. You are a guy that maybe does a project every, 3 months, because the projects take that long because you're doing everything by hand. And it's a cool way of doing things. It's a cool way of understanding how things work, how to teach yourself how to properly swing a hammer, how to properly face your anvil, how to set up a shop. So it's just, comes down to really figuring out, getting a good foundation, finding someone to teach you the foundation work, and then you figuring out what you're going to do with your career. That's what I tell my students all the time. I'm just here to lay the foundation. It's your job to build the house.
Certainly.
All right, so let's check out our piece here real quick.
Yeah, and just wanted to let you know we got a pretty vicious bidding war going on for this thing. We're up to 160 now.
That's outstanding. I've been seeing that. That's outstanding. I love it. Okay, so we're going to pull this out and get it quenched here. And I'm not going to quench right away. I want to let this cool down a little bit. Now, I am going to draw the temper on this, but that's pretty hot. I don't want it to cool down so much. I'm just going to let it start cool. It started to cool, and then I'm going to dip it in there. And I don't do a lot of movement, but I was kind of jammed in there. I don't move it at all. I just sit here and hold it, watch the bubbles on my tank, and as soon as the fluid stops moving, and this is something people can relate to in professional quenching fluids, as soon as the fluid stops moving, or I think it's Parks 50 that does it, as soon as your tank stops vibrating and making a noise, pull it out. Everybody watches Forged in Fire and automatically pull it out to get that flame, and that's just the core of your piece is still hot, and so you're not going to have a good heat treatment, because once you treat that by putting our heat treated, but once you draw a temper on it, whether you do it in the oven or you do it with a torch like we're going to do, you just basically soften the whole dang thing because that core was too hot when it came out. Okay, she stopped moving. Now we will, for posterity, I don't know if you guys can hear that at all.
We heard a couple of them before your noise canceling microphone got it.
Yeah, it is skating. So that's exactly what we want to have happen. Now, this is, once you get like a black heat, this is like right around 800 degrees, you know, I can put a hand on it and it's not burning me. You can go put it in, you can go dunk it. Somebody out there screaming, no, it's 5160, oh no. But don't worry, it's okay. It's not even sizzling in the bucket. And that's where you get by leaving it in your fluid until it fully cools down. And I'm not even worried about this warp-wise. It's pretty good. I can do a little manipulation of this while I temper it. Just take a small hammer and just barely tap on it if I need to. But to get everything in here so you guys can see what's going on. She's not quite, this tank kind of kicks up here, but that's okay. We're going to be really drawing the temper out of these so we can kind of manipulate these. And I'll actually take it and anneal this later on and really get it all straight. Well, let's go over. It's nice and cool. Every part's cool to the touch. Let's go over. We're going to hit it with our wire brush. Take some of this this quench scaling off of here so we can see our colors. Now, you guys can temper with your forge as well. I've done it. It is nerve-wracking as hell, but you can do it. If you have a door on the front of your forge, you can turn your forge up to when it blows a lot of heat out, and you just run your spine across the top of that forge, right where the heat's boiling out of there. And you can draw your temper with your forge. But we're going to do it with the torch. We're going to start down here on the tang. And actually, we're going to put this up so you guys can actually see it, what's going on. I'm not too worried about it. We're way away from our blade. Now, I would have taken the wire brush on my angle grinder and wire brush this, but for time restraints, we're going to draw this out. Now, I want this, I'm going to be burning in my handles, so I don't care how hot I get my tang right here. It's going to be way hot, but I want to start drawing that heat out so I get a dull gray color. It's going to start burning up that residual quenching fluid. And we're going to start walking that down. And if it's burning up that residual quenching fluid that's on there, you're getting upwards of 400 to 500 degrees. It's the same temperatures that you would use if I was going to heat this and beeswax it, blacken it, with beeswax, or heat it up and dunk it in beeswax and some turpentine to really blacken it. And you just start walking this down, really paying attention to what you're doing, especially once you get closer to your blade, so that you're not, and now heat wants to rise, right? And so my blade's down here, so even if I came here, heat's wanting to go up this way, and I can still keep it pretty controlled right around that bend right there. But this, you just got to walk this down and walk it around and walk it around until you have the desired color. Okay, you guys don't need to see all of that. Let's go back over here. And let's just talk about what we're looking for tempering color-wise. You can do it the same way you do chisels, right? So if you make a chisel, you quench it, right? You grind that in really quick, and then keep that end, only quench the front, and then clean up that tip, the edge real quick. And this back here is kind of all still hot and red and everything, and let your colors draw out that way. And you quench it down when you get that dirty straw on the edge. That's optimal coloring. I do the same thing on my knives. I do the same thing on these. I do the same thing with my hammers. I quench, well, when I'm doing a hammer, I quench it below where I want it, because a hammer needs to be softer than what your anvil is. And so then I temper it and draw out a dirty straw on the ends. But I do the same thing with the knife. I want dirty straw about a 1/4 inch above my cutting edge, and then just moving into that golden color around that cutting edge. And that is what you'll get when you do your piece. Now you can see a temper line right there on this. Got a little bit down here farther than I want, but that still is a super sharp spot. You can get a little blue on your edge and it still retain an edge. You'll still be good. So don't worry too much about, oh man, I got blue on there, I got to start over. No, you can get there and still keep a nice edge. Just know that a straw color, a bright straw right on your cutting edge, dirty straw a 1/4 inch above that, and the rest blues and purples. So here is, I use tree limb for handles, and I turn them on my 3x21 sander. Drill a pilot hole, burn the tangs in, grind this down, slide a free sleeve over top of it. I like this corroded look, this pitted look. It really matches what I'm going for on certain things, and allows me to, get the look I want. So you just have to figure out what look you guys are going for. I could make it super clean, put some copper freaking bolster sleeves on it, or make completely full copper bolsters on it. Slide the piece in there, put a copper pin in there so it disappears, so it is pinned. These are friction fit with a little bit of epoxy, and I can get this like looking pristine if that's what I wanted. Every angle is perfect, but that's not what I wanted to go for. So I hope you guys really enjoyed what we had going on today. I can't wait to do more of these things. And if we have some, we'll take a quick shop tour real quick. And then if we have some time, I'll answer more questions. So let's go into the shop.
Job so far.
Thank you, thank you. So let's go on the shop tour. Let's see if I can turn my camera around here. There it is. We're going to start out here. And my shop is, my smithy is 16 feet long by 8 feet wide. And this is a big box forge, pan forge here. It has a 16-inch wide oven that's 11 inches deep for doing cookware and frying pans and stuff in, and big freaking axes. There's my teaching board you guys saw earlier. This is the Workhorse Forge. This is Fred, 2-burner that I build. This was a prototype that me and my partner put together. And there's the Anvil we worked on, the Hercules. This position over here is for a forge welding forge. Has all my tongs and stuff on it. I do have other vices and anvils back that way, but this is where all the smithing goes. and I've taught up to 6 people at a time in this little area. We really, it's a dance, to say the least. My welding bench, which is basically a shelf right now. Welders, welding station. This is a charcoal bin for when I have a coal forge in here. That guy right there saved my bacon this summer. Big old fan. And then we move up here into the finishing shop. There's the Grizzly, the first one I got. The tent sides, this is the smithy it's tarp. It's a tarp. It's a shed in a box. Oh, forgot to show you. This is my press. I need to build the guts in here, but there's we'll put a rail here with an L, press die brackets and everything. And that'll be up and running here the end of November. Lots of Damascus in my future this winter. All right. So this is out here. Shed in the box, $250. So out here is where all the fun stuff happens, right? But a tool doesn't become a tool until it goes there, and up in here. So this is the Grizzly. It's a good 2x72. Those that have it knows that it has tracking issues. It'll get the job done. But this guy right here is what I coined the Ocularis. Chris Lundstrom out of Spokane, Washington builds these, and it's great. It has 0 to 100. I can turn it all the way down. To 1. Or 2. But this is it. Little scroll saw there. This is kind of where I do all the gluing. Dead machines up there. I got to strip out. The motors are good on them. There's some good tool steel in there that I can use for stuff. Little bitty made in China drill press that gets a lot of work. But this is right here, one of the most important tools in the shop probably is this Bauer quarter band, and it gets a lot of work done. So, but yeah, thank you everybody. I appreciate that.
Nice.
I appreciate all the comments, and I'm raring to go for another one whenever the NWBA pulls the trigger.
Well, I think we will definitely hold you to that. So, and we've got at least 29 witnesses here still. So, yeah, look forward to that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Billy. Thanks, everybody.
I know you've been paying attention to the chat, so you see a lot of people are agreeing with you here.
Yeah, and I'm willing to do anything. I teach pretty much anything. Whatever you guys want done, if you can't find someone to do it, you can know that you can always just contact me, and I'll get it done.
All right, on. All right. Well, thank you so much. That looked good. And yeah, and let me go back. I think it was, who was it? Was it Bob Johnson is the guy who's ending up with your, with the Drawknife here? So
that's outstanding.
Excellent.
Yeah, outstanding.
Hey, this is Kellen. Just want to throw in there. Nathan, thank you so much for having us into your shop. Great demo. And for everyone who's been coming to these, thank you for continuing to participate and show up and bid on these items. And just a shout out to Billy for being a great host. This was his first time behind the microphone for the whole thing. He did a great job. So just big.
It was outstanding.
Well,
Nathan,
you made it easy, man.
I appreciate that. So, I mean, I'd love to stay and chit chat, guys, but I got some more work I gotta get done. So I'm gonna let you guys go, and I'm gonna go make some money. How's that sound?
Sounds good. Thank you so much. Take care. And we'll see you
stay
next
safe,
time.
everybody, and forge on.